We've basically been told our entire lives that buying a home is it. It's the ultimate sign you finally made it, right? The classic American dream. But man, looking at the reality of 2026, we really have to ask ourselves a pretty serious question. Is that dream actually starting to look a whole lot more like a financial trap for most of us? Because let's be real, the numbers are just stark. Right now, the median home price is sitting right around an uncomfortable $400,000. And remember, that is just the baseline. Now, combine that baseline with the brutal reality of a 6% mortgage rate, and wow, the whole landscape completely shifts. The math has changed so drastically that even folks pulling in six-figure salaries, they feel like they're just treading water, barely able to keep their heads above the surface. So, welcome to this explainer. Today, we are completely demystifying the brutal math of the 2026 housing market. We're going to run the actual hard numbers on who can truly afford a home today. And more importantly, we're going to explore a high-leverage digital alternative. Like, is your ability to master digital skills and invest a better path to freedom than a traditional 30-year mortgage? Well, let's find out. Here's our roadmap for today. We're covering the 2026 housing trap, why gross income is a total delusion, running the actual mortgage math, the whole asset-rich but cash-poor dilemma, building digital wealth, and we'll wrap up with your financial homework. Let's jump in. All right, Section 1, the 2026 housing trap. And it's a pretty uncomfortable truth. Moving into Section 2, gross income is a delusion, and the banking trick you need to watch out for. Which brings us to the famous 28-36 rule. Okay, so this is the exact guideline that banks use to determine what you quote-unquote qualify for. It basically dictates that your total mortgage payment, so that includes your taxes and insurance, should be no more than 28% of your gross monthly income. But listen, there is a massive flaw in this way of thinking. Because gross income, it creates total delusions. Look, lenders look at your gross income because, honestly, they do not care if you have enough money left over to travel or save for retirement or, eat anything other than ramen noodles for the next 30 years. They literally only care about getting paid back. The reality you actually have to live in is your net income, the money that actually hits your bank account after Uncle Sam takes his cut. So we desperately need a better framework. For those of us operating in the digital space, the rule you should actually be following is this. Keep your total housing costs under 30% of your net income, your actual take-home pay. This is the only real way to protect your cash flow. Okay, Section 3, running the mortgage math. Let's look at the real-world numbers. Let's actually walk through the math for a house priced at $500,000, which is, about $100,000 above the current median. If you want to put 20% down to avoid all those extra junk fees, you need $100,000 in pure cash just to get to the closing table. I mean, that is a massive financial milestone. Then, with a 6% interest rate, your all-in monthly payment is likely sitting right around $3,000. And to afford that comfortably under our true 30% net rule, you need a required gross salary of roughly $160,000 a year. And let's just be real about what a $160K gross salary actually means today. For the vast majority of people, hitting that number requires a dual-income household where both partners are grinding out at least $80,000 each. Taking on a $500,000 mortgage under these conditions isn't just a stretch. It leaves virtually zero margin for error in your life. None. On to Section 4. Asset-rich, cash-poor. The psychological trap. This right here is the classic keeping up with the Joneses delusion. You might feel behind because you're scrolling and you see everyone on your social media feeds buying houses. But what you do not see is that a staggering 66% of their wealth is entirely tied up in their primary home. They are literally sitting on an asset they cannot spend to buy groceries or fund a vacation. We absolutely have to fundamentally reframe how we look at this. Renting is so often portrayed as a failure, right? But renting a modest place and investing the gap, meaning the difference between your rent and what a massive mortgage would cost, that can actually be a huge wealth hack. It keeps you liquid, it gives you freedom. The person quietly renting and investing in a boring stock of index funds, they're very likely going to end up with a higher, much more usable net worth than the person sweating over a $2 million mortgage just to keep up appearances. Section 5. Building digital wealth, the empowering solution. So here is the digital blueprint to actually get ahead. Step 1 is to master high leverage skills. I'm talking about hard-to-replace abilities like data analytics or SQL. I have personally seen people double their salaries from $60K to $120K in a single year just by focusing right here. Step 2 is using that higher salary to increase the gap between what you earn and what you spend. And step 3, you take that gap and you invest it into a boring, reliable stack of index funds. So, the absolute crucial point to remember is this: when you master high leverage skills, you gain the superpower to disconnect your time from your earnings. That is your absolute best hedge against inflation and the true secret to building sustainable wealth. You aren't just trading hours for dollars anymore, You're trading specialized value. Finally, Section 6, your financial homework. Time to take action today. All right, here is exactly what I want you to do right after this explainer. First, run your budget. Get into the numbers. Second, calculate exactly what 30% of your net take-home pay actually is. If that number doesn't even come close to a mortgage payment in your area, do not panic. Just shift your focus to your savings rate and building those high-value digital skills. Oh, and by the way, if you are committed to this boring but incredibly effective path to wealth, comment the word vanilla below. It's my favorite flavor, and honestly, it lets me know who the true long-term thinkers in our community are. And make sure you subscribe so we can hit our next financial milestones together. I want to leave you with a total redefinition of what success actually looks like in 2026. True wealth isn't about owning a specific piece of real estate. It's about having a free calendar. It's about having the financial independence to simply say no to things you just don't want to do. The math is crystal clear, and the choice is ultimately yours. Will you stretch your budget to the absolute breaking point to choose the 30-year mortgage trap? Or will you upskill, invest the gap, and choose the freedom of digital wealth? Start your homework, and I'll see you in the next explainer.